I saw a big black cloud over me. And there were like red eyes in that black cloud looking directly at me. A female jinn could fall in love with a human male, and as a result could cause problems in that person's marriage or in that person's daily life. They were doing this, reading stuff from the book and asking questions and getting answers in any Ouija board. He said they were sitting on the floor and the whole room just turned upside down.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Guys, welcome to a very unorthodox episode of Under the Pomegranate Tree. I'm joined here with some amazing shaykh, mashallah. Those of you who have been following my channel, you will know that Alhamdulillah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with the opportunity of visiting the Holy Lands and performing Umrah, mashallah. Every moment that we spend in this land is very special and should not be wasted. So this time that we have traveling between one spot to another spot, inshallah, we're going to try to make the most of it and record, inshallah, what we can. So we're joined here, of course, you know, over here to my right, this is Mufti Naeem Muhammad Sahib, mashallah. He is my ustad and shaykh. And to my left over here, alhamdulillah, we have soon to be Maulana Muhammad Azam, mashallah, another student of Darul in Birmingham. And here next to me, you may not understand his complete accent because he's from a very strange place in the world called France. Right? Oh, mashallah, we have, you know, you've met Mufti Naeem Sahib, mashallah, as well, on the episode. So without any further ado, you're going to be hearing a lot from Mufti Sahib along this trip. We're going to be stopping off at some amazing spots, inshallah, and vlogging along the way, and then seeing what we can make of this episode, inshallah. So Mufti Sahib, assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
So Mufti Sahib, I have some questions here, inshallah, hopefully trying to pick up off where we left off in the last episode. So hopefully, inshallah, you can illuminate us, inshallah, and some of these. So
We'll try our best, inshallah. We'll try our best,
inshallah.
because we didn't prepare for this, but alhamdulillah.
This is a very off the cuff. I just got some questions over here that I wanted to ask. I haven't even sent them over to Mufti Sahib yet, so let's just roll with it and see how it goes, inshallah. So Sheikh, question number one then: how do people actually communicate with Jinn, and what makes this possible?
Okay. Bismillah. Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammadin wa barik wa sallim. Mashallah.
That's me, actually.
Mashallah, amongst the mu'mineen, or let's say amongst mankind, we have mu'minun and we have kafirun. Amongst jinnats, Allah also mentions in Surah Jinn, وَمِنَ الْمُؤْمِنُونَ وَمِنَ الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ وَمِنَّا الصَّالِحُونَ وَمِنَّا دُونَ ذَلِكَ. So even the jinnats admit that minna as-salihun, amongst us they have salihun, which are righteous ones, wa duna dhalik, wa minna duna dhalik, and amongst us there are those who are not salihun. So let's get that picture in our mind, inshallah, that there's one category of human beings which are believers. There's a category amongst jinns which are believers. There's a category amongst human beings which are kafirun, and there's a category amongst jinns which are kafirun, human beings kafirun, jinns kafirun, mashallah. That's something we should get clear in our minds, inshallah. The jinnat world, the world of the jinn, is a world which is far beyond our world, as well as a world which exists within our world. We won't get into too much details about that, inshallah, but I'll just speak about what is necessary to make the concept a bit clear to understand, inshallah.
The concept of communication,
The
inshallah.
concept of, well, before we go into communication, we need to explain where the world of the jinn is. And because we don't communicate with the jinnats through the phone, right? We don't message them. So where are they? Where are they? So we need to communicate with them in some way. So the world of the jinnats exists as a world within our world, a world which is a copy of our world. Um, so at any given point in time, the jinnats could exist in any place that we might be. So they're not restricted. Their movement is not restricted. They have free movement in our world as well as free movement in their world. Um, if a person wants to communicate with the jinnats, then that person needs to identify why they want to communicate with the jinns and where would the jinns be when they are going to communicate with them. So why and where, those are the first two questions the person needs to ask. And then how. So why the person wants to communicate with jinnats, where the jinnats, and then of course the real question is how. Understood?
Ji Sheikh, very clear. So the why, of course, is going to be very important. So let's just start with that then.
Yeah. So the why, everybody has their own niyat. So al-umur bi maqasidiha. Right, one of the qawaid of fiqh tells us al-umur bi maqasidiha. And then of course we have the ahadith of Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, innamal a'malu bin niyat. So the hadith means all actions are actually judged and based upon your niyyah, your intentions. And then the qaida of fiqh says al-umur bi maqasidiha, that we could classify, we could categorize, we could judge all actions really based on the maqsad and the objective that that action was done for. So why would a person communicate with jinns? Because that person has a niyyah and an intention probably to find out some information of the world of the unseen, or the person is curious and wants just to do some evil, right? So if you're curious and you want to find out about the world of the unseen, or you're also curious and you want to do evil, you got extra time to waste and to commit to that amal, and you want to do evil, those are really the only two intentions a person does it for.
Would it, yeah, Ustad, but wouldn't it be possible that somebody may have some positive intentions of communicating with them? Maybe it could be, for some type of assistance in a halal matter, or I don't know.
To answer that question honestly, there's no real good niyyah for communicating with jinns unless you are a raqi and you're going to do some sulh between the jinns and a person who is a victim of them. We'll speak more about that afterwards, inshallah. But there's no real niyyah. If Allah had given us an open way, or some rukhsa or some ibaha, some allowance to communicate with the jinnat world, then he would have made it more easily accessible. So if it was really part of our deen to give them da'wah or to communicate with them in for some beneficial maqsad, then he would not have made it invisible, right? But they are present in our world, but they are invisible. So that alone shows that there's no real fa'idah in us reaching out to them. There's more harm than difficulty, and there's more harm, than any good that can come from it. Concerning, let's say a person is a Raqi, that's a different level. Not everybody could be Raqis, or not everybody should be Raqis. But Um, sometimes a believer makes a mistake. For example, sleeps underneath a tree or urinates in a hole in the ground, and Nabi Sallallahu said, don't do those things. Or a believer trespasses in the area where jinnats are living. Or there are so many different things that we may do unintentionally and disturb the life, the normal daily life of the jinnats, and that could create a problem. So in those cases, yes, the Iraqi may need to get involved and do some sulh between the human beings and the jinns. And we have instances where yes, it has taken place, but these are not these are not like instances of public knowledge, or these are not things that we give da'wah towards, or and these are not things that we encourage people to do because of the great amount of risks involved. Understood?
Ji, Jazakallah khair. I mean, you've obviously made it very clear that there's no reason why we should feel intrigued with communicating with them unless there's an absolute need to. And you mentioned, maybe somebody stumbled across one, and there was some sort of issue taking place. I want to get into that a bit later on, but there isn't no need. So I don't know how we're going to touch on the how, but for now, Sheikh, because obviously you've been in the field for over 20 years now, mashallah. Could you give us just like maybe one or two examples of when you have communicated with a jinn?
Oh, yeah. We'll take a pause for food and then we'll.
All right, okay. So inshallah, along this way, we're going to be quite a few stops, guys. So it is 9:35 in the morning over here in sunny Jeddah. 11:35. Well, it's 9:35 in the UK then. My UK clock is still going. We're just going to go stop for some breakfast, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. We are back here. Well, we're back, shall I say. Mashallah. We've just come to stop off for some food. But like I said, we just want to make the most of this time that we have and try and squeeze as much information out of Sheikh as we possibly can as well. So Sheikh, we left off with maybe a quick story about when you communicated with the jinn.
Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We'll have to filter this a lot, inshallah. I think the safest incident to speak about was an incident in South Africa, because the other incidents may involve other people's like personal details, so we could try to avoid those, inshallah, as much as possible. So alhamdulillah, while I was in South Africa, the winters there were bad. As Caribbean people, we're not accustomed to that, cold weather. Sometimes it's hail, storms, and then not much snow. But it used to be very, very cold, even without the snow. So sometimes there were heaters in the room, in the dormitory, and then some dormitories we weren't allowed to keep heaters because of the fire hazard, etc., etc. So what I used to do, I would sneak into the classroom late at night, and the classroom had a heater. So nobody knew I was actually staying there. Everybody assumed I was in the dorm, but I was sleeping in the classroom in winter. And before Fajr, I would just fold up my sleeping bag and tuck it under the desk and hide it there, mashallah. So the first night that I stayed in the classroom, I was sound asleep, and I felt as if the wall had crashed. So I heard the crashing of bricks and rocks all around me. And
But we need to be shocked.
I would have started slide down for a few seconds, waiting to see if the wall really fell down or not. So mashallah, after a few seconds, no pain. I'm not feeling any rocks around me, but it's pitch black. And when I opened my eyes, I saw a big black cloud over me. And there were like red eyes in that black cloud looking directly at me, making eye contact to me. And there was a heavy, thunderous voice, and it was saying, I can't sleep there, you can't sleep there, this is my classroom. So this was, mashallah, was a madrasa. Yeah, Talim of Deen is taking place, Quran is taking place, but this big black shaitan is saying, you can't sleep here, this is my classroom. So I said to it, well, I didn't come to make trouble, and I can't sleep anywhere else, right? So it said, you still can't sleep here, this is my classroom. So I just turned, I said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, I turned to my side and I went back to sleep, right? What?
So, mashallah, you're talking so casually, right? As though this isn't the first interaction, right? So obviously, I'm guessing you must have had more interactions too this year. Now, if I woke up in the middle of the night and I'd seen some red eyes staring at me, I ain't gonna sit there and start having a conversation with them now. I might like start fighting over whose classroom it is. So start, the average person will probably bottle it. So, mashallah, I mean, where does this courage come from, first of all, most, before you finish off this story?
Well, I have to admit, alhamdulillah, I did spend a lot of time in Jama doing da'wah, alhamdulillah. And probably from that time, it's just, there's no fear of mouth. There's no fear of anything except Allah. And in doing ruqyah, that's probably one of the first sifat you need to establish.
How old were you?
I was 18.
Okay, mashallah.
Alhamdulillah. So when I turned on my side, I said, A'udhu billahi minash shaitanir rajim, and like, I'm just ignoring this thing. I turned on my side to go back and went back to sleep. And it took its finger and stuck it in my ear and kept pressing. And it's like his nails were long and it reached inside my head. And that was not a nice feeling, subhanAllah. Somebody's nail inside inside your head, like 6 inches deep inside your head.
Yeah.
So I said, Ya salam, what's this? Actually, it was paining, I got up, I folded my sleeping bag and I said, all right, okay, keep your classroom. I'm gone. So I didn't go back to the dormitory. I just went to the masjid and I slept till Fajr. Till Fajr. Alhamdulillah. But when I woke up, I made dua against it. Yeah, I wasn't going to make any dua against him. If that's his classroom and he wants to keep it, then mashallah, that's his story. But sticking the finger in my head, I think that was a little bit too far.
So, why would a jinn even want to interact with humans in the first place?
Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. They love attention, and humans fear what they don't understand. So if you can't see something, you might not be able to comprehend what that something is. Every time a human being encounters something new, they'll be very interested in that new experience. So jinnats, because it's not a regular interaction that takes place with human beings, whenever the jinnats do get a chance to speak to the humans, or to speak to any of the nas insan, the jinns would do anything just to impress the human being, so that they can get additional attention. By getting additional attention, they feed off the attention from human beings. So, like, if a person is extremely scared or extremely angry or extremely sad or extremely happy, and the jinnats, they feel these emotions and they come close to the person to give the person some comfort, the jinnat gets connected to the person and begins to grow from that. So any attention we give them, it's something that feeds them and that strengthens them. So that's the reason why you would see people giving devotions of offerings. It's actually a means of tawajjuh and a means of giving attention, specific attention to the jinnats. So that's that's the reason why jinns would want to communicate with people.
Jazakumullah khair. So now we know that interactions between humans and jinns is possible. What kind of relationships can develop between humans and jinns?
Oh, okay. Bismillah, alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Sometimes the same relationship that develop between human being and human being, this could occur between jinn and the human. So, yes, people sometimes get married to jinns, and that's a complicated issue.
Knowingly.
Yeah, knowingly, people could get married to jinns knowingly. So, like when a man has a wet dream,
Is that jais?
I would tell you it's not jais. Now, there is some, let's say, difference of opinion among the scholars, right? But I would say no, it's not jais.
Okay, so other than marriage, like how about like friendships or business partnerships?
No, business partnerships wouldn't work.
It would make logistics a lot easier, right?
Not really, to get those type of jinns to work, you need to have authority over them, and that authority doesn't come cheap. So there was an incident, something like a business partnership that we were involved in. Not myself involved in business partnership, but an incident that I had to deal with in South Africa, where the jinn brought a big suitcase full of money for this person, but the person had to meet the jinn at a specific area, like it's like a dam. So he would meet the jinn there, and behind the waterfall, this is where the jinn would speak to this man, and brought to him a suitcase full of money, and all this man had to do was accept the money and do sajda to it. And the jinn said he would just keep on providing money for this man. But definitely that's not possible.
Seems like an easy trade, though, isn't it? One sajda and a case full of money.
Yeah, one sajda, case full of money, and forever in Jahannam.
Subhanallah, subhanallah. Sheikh Azam, how you doing? You're not getting too tired, are you?
Yeah, I need an energy drink.
Chalo, maybe we could stop for some coffee, man, but I can't see no coffee places around here. We're in the middle of the desert.
Yeah, hopefully there are some.
Tayyib, inshallah. Okay, Ustad, next question then, inshallah, if you may. So, sorry, you never mentioned about friendships, because I'm aware that, maybe sometimes friendships can develop, and also if you want to expand on a bit about what's this aashiq jinn all about?
There could be aashiq amongst men and women. So I think I was explaining to you, sometimes sexual relationships take place between man and jinn. So when a person has a ihtilam and a wet dream, it's usually the female jinns having intercourse with that person, and it also works vice versa. Sometimes male jinns have intercourse with women, and of course most of the time it's unwilling and unknowing. So the word aashiq means a beloved person or a lover, or somebody who is infatuated with somebody else. So sometimes a female jinn could fall in love with a human male, and would be in that person's life, in that person's company, and as a result could cause problems in that person's marriage or in that person's daily life. And similarly, A male jinn could fall in love with a woman and have the same effect on her, where she is isolated and sometimes depressed. And the jinn just comes in different forms, sometimes in her mind, or a voice in the head, or a dream, and then comforts that woman. And that's what the aashiq really is. At other times, the sahir could sometimes do a spell, an evil on somebody, and trap that person in a relationship with a jinn because the sahir was hired by, let's say, an anonymous admirer or secret admirer to keep this person under control. So,
Subhanallah. Scary stuff, Ustad. You said knowingly or unknowingly and unwillingly. And obviously we know that, wet dreams and ihtilam is quite common. So how would a person be able to differentiate what was from himself, as in maybe like the body's way of getting rid of, bodily fluids, or how would you know that it was a jinn that caused that ihtilam? Or would you say all ihtilam is from the jinn?
okay, bismillah, alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. I would say all ihtilam are from the jinns because the body was created in such a way where if there's excess, then the body just recycles it. So all ihtilam is from the jinns, especially the ihtilam which takes place with a dream, right? If that's what we refer to as ihtilam, a person gets a dream, and in the dream they are doing intercourse with somebody else, and then it turns out to be a wet dream because there's like inzal, an ejaculation. Yes, this is from shaitan. So the female shaitan or male shaitan would take a form that's pleasing to the victim, to the person, and have that relationship with them in the dream, and then yeah, it happens. So if this is what we term as ihtilam, a dream with ejaculation, yes, then all of them are from the shayateen.
Okay, mashallah. So Ustad, you mentioned the jinn can lock in, or a sahir, a magician, can cause a jinn to get attached to a person. So what does the sahir, what does he have to do exactly in order to start utilizing jinns to carry out his work?
I think we discussed that already. The sahir just has to be devoted to the jinn. And we mentioned concerning the sahir using najasat and doing offerings to the jinn and being loyal to the jinn, loyal as a servant or loyal as if he's doing ibadat for the jinn. Yeah, then the main jinn who is in charge of that tribe appoints helpers for the sahir and workers for the sahir, and that's how the sahir communicates and make his requests, and then work gets done.
Okay, jazakumullah khair. And you also said that the jinns make promises as well, to say that if you worship us, we will give you such and such thing. Do these, and you also mentioned the story about the guy in South Africa who used to get a briefcase full of money. Do jinns keep their word when they make promises, or is it just like a way of trapping a person into their submission?
Sometimes the first promise is fulfilled, but the person usually has to pay much more than what he gains. So yeah, the first promise is fulfilled, and afterwards the person becomes the slave of the jinn, and eventually the promises are no longer kept by the jinn, but the person has to keep on doing tasks to fulfill the demands of his master now.
So, alhamdulillah, we are still in the city of Medina right now, mashallah. I don't know, for some reason, this city just hits differently, and Sheikh. I don't know, man. It's like as soon as we walked into the masjid, the first thoughts that I got was, because in Makkah, everything was a bit like, there's a lot of oppression going on the believers. They weren't able to express their deen. The Quraysh was, on their case. And then in Medina, then that's when they sort of settled. And then that's when the real knowledge started to spread. The Ashab Sufa used to be sat there. So I had those sort of vibes when I was at the masjid. And then even now, praying Salah, the Imam read, وَالْعَادِيَاتِ ضَبْحًا. No, what did the Imam read? He read in the first rakat of Maghrib.
In Medina.
Yeah, no, here now.
Oh, Wadduha.
Wadduha, sorry, yeah. Wadduha. Right? Wadduha wal layli idha saja ma wadda'aka rabbuka wa ma qala. And I was thinking, yo, he's just here, man. This surah was revealed for that Nabi Kareem Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam, and he's just here. I don't know, the city just hits differently. And look, even in our backdrop, the viewers can see, mashallah. You might just be able to, if I move my camera up a bit, you might just be able to see above my head. There we go. This is the ghilaf of the Kaaba there. This black one over here, mashallah, this is from the exterior of the Kaaba. And the green one over there, mashallah, that's the interior of the Kaaba. Mashallah.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, Sheikh? So it's amazing. You come to these cities and you pick up some amazing stuff.
Oh.
So I want to obviously get back into the topic, but I just wanted to take a moment because this is my last few hours, I guess, here in these blessed cities before I have to fly back. So it's going to be very difficult to leave. But inshallah, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bring us back again and again, inshallah. So, Sheikh, we were going to move onto the topic of the Dajjal, but I think that's going to need an episode on its own. And this episode has been very unorthodox, between one place to another place with all the traveling, seeing all the hot spots, and then obviously discussing the muhim topic of jinns and sihr, between one place to another. But if we can just sort of encapsulate what's been going on. So if I just go into that last few questions then about jinns before we call this one a day, and inshallah we'll pick up again in a few weeks' time in Trinidad. Mm-hmm. So we spoke about the sahir, the magician, and how the sahir uses the jinns to carry out his works. What sort of repercussions are involved with people who want to delve into these types of topics? Somebody who wants to deal with jinnat, or somebody who wants to engage with gaining support from a magician without any type of knowledge.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ala ali Muhammad wa barik wa sallim. إنه لا يفلح الساحرون. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. The ayat of Quran comes to mind. إنه لا يفلح الساحرون. And what was the aashiq Adam? ولا يفلح الساحر حيث أتى. Yeah, that's the ayat of Quran. بعد أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولا يفلح الساحر حيث أتى. Right? So wherever the sahir goes, or whatever he does, لا يفلح, he would not see success. Now, the falah that is spoken about here is the ultimate and eventual falah. Success meaning the last amal and the last matter of the life of the sahir, if he does not make tawbah and he does not make islah of the evil that he has done, then eventually to the end or close to the end of his life, he would fail, he would be destroyed. And his destruction or her destruction would not be like the destruction of any other person. It's going to be worse than everybody else. Allah is going to use that sahir as an ibrah, as a warning lesson for others to follow. So let's say a Muslim commits a major sin and does sihr. So one, if that Muslim has the niyyah and the intention that this is more successful, this is more profitable for me than Islam, than Deen, and the Muslim does it with no regret and does not see it as a major sin, then it is considered as kufr. If the Muslim is doing something similar to sihr or on the borderlines of sihr and is very afraid and is considering it to be a major sin, then it's considered as from the kaba'ir, the major sins, yes, but it would not be considered as kufr. So a person starts doing sihr, right? Whether Muslim or non-Muslim, the person starts doing sihr. Any type of sin that a person can involve themselves in, it has a type of zina and decoration and flavor and attractiveness. Otherwise, if sins were not attractive, if they were not decorated, if they didn't give some type of enjoyment, people wouldn't do it, right? So it has to be a trap in the beginning. So in the beginning, yes, the sahir or the evil person is going to receive or get probably what they want. You know, like in South Africa, there's this type of jinn that people give offerings to. It's called the tokolosh. The tokolosh, right? The tokolosh, in South Africa, that's what they call it. Probably in the UK, they might call it leprechaun. In the Caribbean islands or South America, they call it, it's like the dwen. So all over the world, this type of jinn exists, but people call it by different names, but it functions the same where it loves, or it's connected to wealth. If you become a friend of it, it tries to bring wealth towards you. And so a person's going to maybe successful financially, but eventually when this demon, when this jinn does demand his price, the price is usually life. So there were cases where people, they were in relationships with this, right? Let's say financial relationship with it, and eventually they died. And eventually they died. Most of these people, you would find them, they would just pop up dead. They would eventually pop up dead. And they would die alone. So the person who delves into evil, they would usually die alone. They may have enjoyed some type of life of luxury and ease, but then the last moments of their lives is the worst and is the most horrible. So that's the sahir itself, the person who has actually given everything for the shaitan. Let's say there are some people who practice what you call sihr al-abyad, which is what they categorize as white magic. It is evil, it is sihr, it is haram, it's kufr, it's shirk, but they consider it as white magic. So they think, they could still do it because it's not black magic, but all of it is the same. So those people, when they get involved in doing things, in doing such evil, the evil only works for them to the extent of their devotion and sacrifice for that evil. And then eventually the evil stops working. It stops working. And when it stops working, let's say they were victimizing somebody. Let's say they were doing some spells for business or love spells or spells to influence people. So let's say they were doing those things, and the person who's a victim probably starts doing amal, starts doing salat, starts getting some treatment, the sahir of the Sihr al-Abyad starts getting all the backlash. So it's like a return to sender system where the person who's the victim starts doing amal and starts defending themselves. No, mashallah, because of hasanat and khair and good. So the evil can't approach that person. And evil doesn't just disappear. The evil just makes a U-turn and goes back to the one who sent it. And yes, this is what you would call a backlash, right? Where the person gets sick, or somebody close to that person gets sick, eventually gets sick. And these people who do evil, a lot of the times the backlash comes back against their own children, against their wives, their spouses. Sometimes it comes and it affects the person whom they love the most. It comes back and it destroys that person. And this is how the curse of sihr and the curse of evil usually works. Because that person has no help from Allah, and this is where the backlash comes and it destroys the person's life.
Jazakumullah khair, Shaykh. So ultimately, the sahir himself will meet a terrible end. Right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will not only reserve a punishment for him in the afterlife, but his khatima, his last few breaths will be devastating as well for him. And then the person who visits the sahir, right, and gets the sahir to do stuff, there's a high likeliness that whatever effects that they went to the sahir for will have a backlash and come back and hit them and their families. So, I mean, we see, I've heard a lot of stories like back home where people have gone and visited certain people, but they've gone there with not knowing that they're doing something bad. Somebody has come up to them and offered them stuff, or they've had a flyer through the door that Fulan Baba is offering this type of stuff. You know, you're having, you're not getting success in business, or you're not finding success in marriage, right? We're able to solve your problems. The sahir, obviously that's, you can't advertise that sort of stuff because everything comes from min Allah. But the layman, are they still to blame by going and visiting such people?
Okay, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Definitely, if a person does something evil like that, even if they are not aware of what they are doing, they would still be accountable. They would still be accountable. And as we said before, evil doesn't have any loyalties. So the evil wouldn't even feel sorry for them. Let's say the person goes to the sahir, goes to the evil person without proper research. Then that's their fault, right? That is their fault. They would be accountable for it. Because as Muslims, it's part of our need to survive in this world. Part of our need to survive in this world is talabul ilm, seeking knowledge. And seeking knowledge means you're going to connect to the people of ilm and people of knowledge. And most of the decisions, the important decisions in your life, you'll need to make mashura and consult an imam or some alim, some scholar. And this is how your problems are going to be solved. So the people who usually find themselves in these traps, one, they did not consult scholars. So they are far from deen themselves. If they are far from deen themselves, then anybody could play tricks on them, anybody could deceive them. So they would be accountable for it. And yes, they will be blameworthy also. It might be a bitter pill to swallow, but we have to say the truth. We have to speak the truth that, yeah, they will be accountable for it. And if they make tawbah and they totally cut all ties with such people who are serving evil, the sahirun, etc., after making tawbah, then they need to make islah. Meaning, if you had done something evil, which is in a scale of 1 to 10, like say a 6 out of 10, and you give that amount of commitment for the evil, now when you're doing islah and you're rectifying the wrong that you had done in the past, you need to do a good and be committed to a good to the extent of like 6.5 or 7 out of 10, a little bit more than the evil that you have done. Abandoning an evil alone is not just that's not enough for tawbah. Yes, abandoning the evil and saying astaghfirullah, I regret it, you would be off the hook, inshallah, through the mercy of Allah, in the court of Allah on the day of judgment. But in this life, effects could still affect a person, could still fall on a person, unless the person makes islah. And islah is involving yourself in some good, committing to some good that you did not have in your life previously, and you're actually doing that now to protect yourself from the consequences of the evil that you actually piled up against your own self.
Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. So we've spoken about the sahir themselves. We never went into much detail. I don't even think they deserve that much attention. But we spoke about that person who actually goes and visits the sahir. Obviously, they shouldn't. There's no reason to go and visit them, right? If they've gone, they're going to be held accountable because they never had it. They should have approached the right people, and they should have had enough knowledge to know about their religion to be duped by such individuals. They must do sincere tawbah and do more than what they were previous doing. Simple astaghfirullah isn't going to cut it. They're going to have to, it's going to be a whole life-changing situation for them. I want to move, before we finish, I want to move over onto the individual now upon whom the sihr has been done. Right? What sort of signs are there that a person can recognize that maybe somebody has done sihr on them? Are there any, and how do they go about fixing those issues?
All right, Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. We have found through experience and through being in the suhbah of ulama and people of this field that evil are of different categories. So the evil that affects a person, that reaches a person, could be from sihr, which is black magic itself, and that is different from ainu, which is the effects of the evil eye. And we have ainul hasid, which is the effect of the hasid, the person who envies you. And these are like some of the main sources of evil. And the last source of evil is actually, mas min al jan, when a jinn is not sent by a hasid, or is not sent by a person who has evil eye against you, is not sent by a sahir, but the jinn itself just is interested or has some personal beef with the person, and then the jinn starts attacking the person. So those are like the 4 categories of evil, right? So let's just put aside the jinn part, because it's kind of easy to figure out if a jinn is affecting somebody. You may see dreams where the jinn speaking to the person will witness dreams, or shadows in the house, or sometimes even physically while the person is awake, the jinns would come and make threats. So that's rare, but it happens. Then we have the ayn, right? Ainul hasid and ainul su. These are the 2 most difficult ones to recognize. So the ainul hasid and the ainul su, right? Mm-hmm. These are the 2 most difficult ones to recognize, because the signs and the alamat and the sifat for these could vary from person to person, from balad to balad, city to city, based on uruf, etc., etc. The easiest one to recognize is the effects and the athar of sihr, right? So if sihr is affecting somebody, it depends on what type of sihr it is. Different types of sihr and my black magic affects differently. let's just generalize it now and make some general alamat and signs, right? Sihr, if sihr is affecting somebody, as the sihr alone, not sihr with jinns, not sihr with ainul hasid, not sihr with ainul su, just pure sihr alone, because sihr can be paired with any of the other evils too. So let's say proper sihr alone. One, the person may start experiencing heaviness and confusion. So the head becomes very heavy and confused, so confused that the person no longer can focus on those things that they used to focus on before, and sometimes they would have short-term memory loss, not long-term memory loss, but short-term memory loss because of the cloudiness and confusion of the head. Right, that's one. Sometimes the person has boils or injuries that are not actually healing. Understood? So that's two. If a person is affected only by sihr alone, just sihr alone, the sihr, the evil alone, could create such an environment where there's like unexplained separation between husband and wife, unexplained feuds between or amongst family members, unexplained destruction of property, right? So the unexplained destruction of property like refers to unexplained loss of business, because okay, if you're doing business, then there's a way you could project and see some loss that is about to hit you, right? But let's say unexplained things are taking place in a person's business where there's no rational way of trailing or figuring out, okay, how did this loss happen? How did this like, okay, you know, like a person is dealing in food. How did this entire warehouse of stocks, go rotten overnight? Right? A person probably has agriculture, right? How did this entire few acres of crops just died overnight or got burnt overnight? How did these animals just died? If a person's a farmer. So when when sihr is affecting somebody, it usually shows up in some negative impact that happens without expecting it and without warning. That's how sihr operates. Now, most people who are affected would not experience that. What they would experience is they would experience sihr paired together with ainosu. Sihr paired together with ainul hasid, or sihr paired together with some amal of the shayateen. So one works with the other one. The shaitan is the smaller evil, the ainosu is the smaller evil, the ainul hasid is the smaller evil, but they kind of fill in the gaps where the sihr it doesn't work, and they speed up the process of the person losing hope. They speed up the process of the person becoming frightened or panicked. So that's what the other three evils do, and this sihr is the one that hits the last blow. Understood?
Jazakumullah khair. So obviously you said it's a bit tricky here, because you said a person who's possessed by jinns, and those signs are really easy. I want to get back to that very briefly, but like Ainul Hasid and Sihr paired with jealousy and things like that, many a times people just probably put it down to like bad luck and they'll move on, and then these calamities will continuously fall upon them, right? Are there any signs? I mean, I know you mentioned that unexplained losses, right? But is there any other telltale signs to pick on it other than that? Because people probably just say, that's bad luck. I made a business investment, it went wrong, or I may have left a window open, that's why my stock went off. It could be a natural disaster or anything, right? Is there anything other than that? And also, the person who's been possessed by a jinn, right? Are they going to be aware that they are possessed by a jinn? Or are there signs that other people around them need to pick up on? So it's like a double-barrel question there. First, about Ainul Hasid, are there any other signs to pick up on other than, putting it down to, let's say, bad luck or something, and then the signs of possession?
All right, Bismillah, alhamdulillah, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Concerning the other signs of sihr, etc., it deals from case to case. And this is why I said the examples I gave are only general examples, right? But each individual case would always be different.
Could you give us a live example? Something that you've
A live example of what?
Of sihr that you've dealt with.
Live example of sihr that I dealt with. Okay. That's without like mentioning about the identity of anybody.
Of course.
There were certain cases where people had machinery, right? Agriculture machinery and industrial machinery, brand new machinery, and for absolutely no logical reason, no logical explanation. The machinery is like brand new, serviced, still under warranty, and it would just stop working. And it's not working because of some part or anything that's blue. No, it just doesn't work. And if it's moved to another area, different site, or if a new owner buys it, it works perfectly for them. So that's like one example.
How did you deal with that?
No, I wouldn't go into the details of how we dealt with it, because it may it may expose people's personal matters, and we don't want to do that. We don't want to speak about people's personal issues, inshallah ta'ala. So that's just one issue. Another issue was on a certain island, a certain small Caribbean island. This person was working for a company, let's call it a company, right? A financial company. And they went to a meeting, and there were like about 4 or 5 managers or senior managers or 4 or 5 owners of the company itself. And they were doing like sihr to make the company more successful, right? So they were doing sihr to make the company more successful. So they were using a sihr book, plus they were using one of these Ouija board things, right? And the Muslim guy who was invited to that meeting, he said, well, while they were doing this, reading stuff from the book and asking questions and getting answers in the Ouija board, he said they were sitting on the floor and the whole room just turned upside down. Meaning, in 1 second they're sitting on the floor, the other second, the floor becomes the roof and the roof becomes the floor. And they were sitting upside down against gravity. And he was like, what's this one about, And he said he just dropped everything and he ran out of there. He didn't even look back. So that's like another example of somebody involving themselves in sihr, but also being a sahir and being the mashur, being the perpetrator and the victim at the same time. So I'm not going to go into details about how these things are treated, because each case is different, right? And what was the next question?
Finally, about the jinns then. So will the person themselves know that they are being possessed? I know you said that they could get visited inside the dreams and things like that. What if they just put it down to nightmares? Is it something else to like put, to pinpoint? And also, are there any telltale signs that people around them, like family members and loved ones, can pick up on?
Again, it is case to case, right? So let's say somebody is being affected by jinn and the person is doing good amal. Then they may just feel a certain pain in their body, and the pain moves from place to place and it leaves a lump. So that's one sign that, okay, the jinnat affecting the person and the jinnat is actually living in the body, but the jinnat's movements and effect is restricted. Then sometimes a person, okay, is asleep and then starts sleepwalking and does things while they're sleepwalking, and the family would notice, yeah, he's responding, he's speaking, but his eyes are like wide open. There's no response in his eyes, and the person is just doing actions while sleepwalking and can't even remember. And then there are some cases where people behave like schizophrenic, where there are multiple personalities, and the person knows that there's a problem with me, but doesn't know how to control it. So yeah, most of the time when a jinn is affecting somebody, the people around would notice changes in that person's character, behavior, habits, especially like cleanliness. When a jinn is possessing somebody, the person becomes very unclean, loves unclean smells, unclean places. It doesn't have proper hygiene. Those are some signs when the possession is great. So the people around could observe that and notice it, and then yes, sometimes, let's say 60-70% of the time, the person themselves would know that something's wrong with me. But then it boils down to, is this person a mu'min, a believer who has knowledge that jinns exist? So if they have knowledge that jinns exist, then yeah, then they would know, okay, most likely this is a jinn that's affecting me. And if a person is not a believer in those things, then they're just gonna palm it off as some psychological problem, some stress problem, whatever it might be. So the answer to that question, it comes down to the person's iman and level of deen and knowledge of the existence of these things. If you don't believe something exists, it could affect you, and you wouldn't even recognize that it's affecting you. You're gonna blame it on something else, right?
Jazakumullah khair, Sheikh. One last and final question, then, inshallah. And we're being summoned by our host, mashallah, that we need to wrap up. Otherwise, I'm going to miss my flight, which may not be the worst thing in the world. But inshallah, let's see. Last question. You know, all those people that made think of all of this is just a load of lies and telltale stuff. Like, they don't believe it, they choose not to believe in it. I know many people like that, right? They say, oh, I believe that they jinns exist because obviously they come in the Quran, but they don't possess people and this, that, and the other. And you know, there's no such thing as sihr and black magic or ain and things like this, and they just totally reject it. What piece of advice would you give them, number one, or what would you say to that person that is just totally oblivious, or they're just choosing to reject it, first and foremost, right? And then if you can just finish off with a final piece of advice for people of how to just generally protect themselves.
Okay, Bismillah, alhamdulillah. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. Let's take the second question first. General protection from evil. One, it's imperative that whether we have problems or we don't have problems, we establish all our salat. Two, proper hygiene, especially toilet and hygiene. And we try to use eternal perfumes, miswak, so that we don't develop any bodily smells, right? Three, learning and reciting Quran. This creates an automatic shield for a person. Then we have the eating halal foods and staying away from haram foods, right? And establishing du'as of morning and evening from the sunnah. The du'as of the sunnah, we establish those du'as morning and evening, inshallah. So those are just basic things we could do to gain definite, undoubtable protection from Allah. This is guaranteed protection. And of course, as we said, each case deserves a different type of diagnosis and a different type of treatment and advice. Concerning people who don't believe in something, one is whatever Quran says, whatever the Hadith mention, then Alhamdulillah, it is true. if we don't believe in sihr, then and we outwardly reject it, then this is like rejecting part of what Allah is telling you is iman, is truth, right? And that could lead to kufr, because we should believe in it's not that we should believe in it, but this is the world we live in. These are the real things that could affect us. Allah and the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam has given you ways to guard from the evil of these things. So it's as if we're telling Allah, I don't. You say it, but I don't believe what you're saying. And it's as if we're telling the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, okay, you're giving me ways to protect myself from these things, but I don't believe it exists. So what you're saying doesn't make sense. So it's as if we are saying that to Allah, the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. For example, the hadith of Ajwa. Part of the virtue of Ajwa, besides protecting from poison, is protecting from sihr when you eat it. Understood? And why would the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam even specifically mention that if it was just a joke or something abstract or something not real? It's as if we are telling the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, you know what, I'll eat the Ajwa, but I don't believe in the sihr part. It's as if we're telling him, what you're saying, you don't know what you're saying. It doesn't make sense. So that's one. That's more or less the answer I'll give to those people. But also, if somebody doesn't want to believe in something, then Allah doesn't beg somebody to believe in things. The Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not begging you. And it's not like a product you're selling that you need to convince people, about it so that they can buy it. Lakum dinukum waliya din. If somebody doesn't want to accept it, then leave them as they are. We don't create, we don't make this as a means to debate with people, to convince them, to bring proofs about it, because that's not the sunnah way of doing things and doing da'wah. So if somebody rejects it, then let's say they are curious, yes, we could give them evidence from Quran and sunnah. But if they reject it and they want proof, we don't need to give anybody proofs of anything, because we are not selling a product. Islam is not selling a product. Allah is not selling a product. Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is not selling a product, right? If you believe in Allah and the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam and the truthfulness of their words, then alhamdulillah, you accept. And if you reject, that's no loss for Allah or the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam or the deen.
Jazakumullah, Shaykh, and Jazakumullah for your time. It's been a very blessed trip, mashallah. I've very much enjoyed staying in your company. I'm sure the rest of the brothers here can all agree as well, mashallah. Having you around is invaluable, mashallah. We've got Shaykh Naeem over there, who's, I guess, is very eager to come on, but we've seen too much of him on this show. But inshallah, we'll get him on in the next one, inshallah. Inshallah. So guys, Jazakumullah khair for watching in. This has been a bit of an unorthodox episode. It's been here, there, everywhere. Jazakumullah khair for joining us once again under the pomegranate tree. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.